In the grand arena of life, every man faces his own unique seasons, times of triumph, struggle, growth, and reflection. Your legacy is forged not just by the challenges you face, but by the quality of your thoughts and actions. Welcome to the Legacy Podcast with Ernest Wood, where we explore the path to true happiness, enduring legacy, and becoming the man you're meant to be.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Legacy Podcast. Today we have another fantastic guest. This guy, just met him about a month and a half, no, probably about 3 months ago, and he has helped me out tremendously. So I know he's going to be able to help out a lot of the speakers here, or listeners here. Chris Hunsicker, he is an international best-selling author, executive coach, keynote speaker. He does all kinds of stuff. He's been 30 plus years in leadership experience, cutting edge on the AI. I'm telling you, he is seriously cutting edge on AI. He has taught me so much. He also has the Dealership War Room podcast, author of Unstoppable Culture. He's a grandfather of 6. He balances wisdom, warmth, and fire. This dude is awesome. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ernie. It's good to be here, man. I'm excited to spend some time with you today.
Dude, it's every time I get to chat with you, it's been an absolute pleasure. I learned something new, so I think the audience is going to learn something great from you. Give us a little story of how you got started, and we'll just start where you got started.
Sure, because it's kind of I am truly the accidental professional. So, began my career as a marriage and family therapist, and working primarily with adolescent drug addicts, which is a great place to start, I guess, if you're going to do that. Started out in as a social worker with a master's social work degree, and I loved working with the hospital. I love working with my clients, but like anything that happens, if you're in that world, one of the hardest days is the first day one of your patients dies. Because when you work with drug addicts, there's suicide, there's overdoses, and the first funeral changes you forever. And the first time I went to a funeral is when I went from, I have a degree and I have a set of tools, to if I fail, people die. And it changed my desire. Like there's something clicked in me that from that moment, even to this day, I am always in search of skills, tools, frameworks that help people get better. Not theory and academic and papers. I don't want to be able to explain why you're sick, broken, or hurt. I want to help you get out of being sick, broken, or hurt. Does that make sense? So my whole focus shifted from being able to explain to you why you're sick or wrong, and how do I help you get from A to B? Whether you understand the theory or not was irrelevant. And right when I got dialed into that, and I'm really making some progress, the hospital that I worked for got bought by a large corporation, and they closed my program. And literally, like the CAA guys with the suits and the sunglasses and, little briefcase walk in, and they decided they could make 8% more money with cardiac rehab than with drug rehab, and told me, an entire team of people, and 250 patients in aftercare, like, see you later. It was a painful day.
And that just, that's one of those things that's just really tough to swallow. 8% more. But the thing is like a lot of those, they're not even trying to fix the problem, right? They're just chasing the profit.
Yes.
And I mean, that's a super obvious. Oh man, we can go off on that for a long time. That is one of the most irritating things. But learning how to actually fix somebody by solving the problem is totally different than just having the academics of it. How did you kind of change that mindset? Because that is something that I find very interesting chatting with other coaches and stuff, because a lot of people are super smart, book smart, but they cannot get that to the next level and take it to the next person to help that person change or do what they need to do.
That's well said. So you can see all the books behind me, right? I'm a big fan of reading. Okay, I've tried to read a book a week for 30 years. Now, I've never read 52 books in a year, but I've never read less than 30. And here's the challenge, though. Most people watch a podcast, read a book, go to a seminar to learn, but they turn that learning, that insight, into becoming more educated blamers. All right. They then go home to their spouse, their friends, their people. I now know why you're so crazy. And if you would just do this, my life would get better. And my core philosophy, core belief is that in order for things to get better, you need to get better. And Paul and Stacy Martino, who run Relationship U, she said this better than anyone I've ever heard. She said, when you get to the end of your skill set, you blame other people. So when you find yourself blaming, what that means is you reach the end of your skill set. And again, another one of those pivotal moments where like the universe grants you a little piece of wisdom and then you spend the rest of your life trying to figure it out. So early on in our marriage, I'm working full time, going to graduate school, doing practicum counseling. Like I had like 90 hours booked every week before I even started. And I'm married and we have 2 kids. So life's intense and hard and we're poor. And my wife and I got into a huge argument. Now, to this day, I can't remember what we were arguing about. I will tell you I was probably right, but
Yeah.
it was one of those arguments where the argument doesn't even end, right? You just stop talking to each other and walk. So she goes downstairs to the basement and I go upstairs to my bedroom and I'm just pissed at why everything has to be so hard, why my wife has to be so crazy. And in my bedroom, I have a bookshelf, right? Like this, but only one little bookshelf. This is early on. And it had all my books, you know, from graduate school and undergraduate and psychology and therapy and brief therapy and all that kind of stuff. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, if my wife weren't so doggone crazy, I could have a good marriage. And then I got to the next bookshelf, which was all the books on religion, philosophy, spirituality from the 2 years I spent as a missionary. And then I'm like, yeah, if I didn't have a crazy wife, I could be a more spiritual person. And then for whatever reason, the thought came to me, you should really pray. And this is a very embarrassing story to share, but it'll give you hope. So I kneel down by my bed and I literally said this. God, could you please help my wife be less stupid? Like, I really want to have a good marriage, but can you just help her suck less? If it just could do that. And I'm just going on and on like this. Now, and I can't say that I'm one of those profoundly spiritual persons that the heavens opens up and I hear the voice of God every day. But there are moments when I've heard that voice, and this was one of them. And the first thought that came into my head was, if you hurt this bad, can you imagine how much she hurts? To which I was like, nope, been pretty much consumed with my own pain. And then the second thought that came to my head was, you have an unlimited capacity to be more patient, to be more loving, to be more kind, to be more forgiving, to be more flexible. The only problem is you lack patience, not your wife. And as profound as that is, it took me another 10 years of being married to really understand it. But that moment, that thought informed all of my coaching work for the next 30 years. That almost everybody comes to me with some version of, can you help me deal with, fill in the blank, my wife, my sales team, my manager, my boss, my mother. And there's a version of it that basically says this: they drive me nuts. They just frustrate the heck out of me. They just trigger me. And I'll always look at them. I'll say, listen, let me be as clear as I can. It is not the job of your spouse, friend, boss, person to solve your triggers. It's their job to show them to you. It's your job to solve them. So when you find yourself upset at other people making life so hard for you, what you absolutely know, you have reached the end of your skill set. Good news, you can expand your skill set. Bad news, most people just choose to become more educated blamers.
It's awesome the way you put that. I just recently listened to something because I'm constantly working on stuff. I did actually read 52 books in a year though, but I don't get my 30 in every year. So you're way ahead, but I did have that one shiny moment. But something that goes along with what you're saying is external events are there, right? But it's what's internal to you. because if you're looking at something, what that guy used was an example of being out in the ocean, right? And if you're swimming and you're not the best swimmer and you see a double overhead breaker coming behind you, you're going to be like, oh crap, right? But if you're out there and you're a surfer, you're like, hell yeah, that wave hasn't changed. It's just the person that you are is different, right? And
Exactly.
another little one was, it, nothing will bug you if it doesn't have a maybe a little bit of truth to it. Like,
Oh
so
yeah.
if somebody called you, hey, you're a hat. What the hell's he saying? Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
bug me. But somebody says you're a selfish brat, then you get into that. Is that what you deal with a lot of that then, right?
Yeah, I will share with you like a simple principle or rule. What you find most frustrating in other people is generally something you despise or don't like in yourself. And
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
why it becomes so frustrating, so challenging for people. Yeah, very much so.
Right. That's a good little point right there. So obviously you've had a very, very good, a good marriage. Obviously it took a little bit. You wrote a couple books. Let's talk about a couple of little hardships and then let's get into the good, like how you progress from there and what you've learned from there. Because I seem to find that people learn the most from struggles. When you succeed, yeah, it's freaking fantastic to succeed, and it's that feeling, but the all the learning comes from the struggles, the process, and getting there.
Oh, I'd love to. So there's three, I would say, troughs, right? Struggles where things dip down pretty low and were pretty hard. And every one of them created the pivot to the next really great part of my career. So the first one I shared with you was when they closed the hospital, right? One of the vice presidents at Mrs. Fields Cookies, her son was in my program. And word got out pretty fast that the hospital had closed. And she called me and said, "Hey, is there any way you could do for my company what you did for my family? Because my company's like more screwed up than my family." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not really. I'm a therapist. I'm not really a consultant." She goes, "I'll pay you." I'm like, I'm in, right? That was it. I was done. Like I had 5 kids, wife, no income. I'm in.
It's there.
And I
I'm
didn't
there.
understand that most consultants, you're supposed to like tell the CEO that they're doing great and everything. And I didn't know how to do that. I just knew how to tell the truth. So I go in and I sit down with the CEO to find out what they want me to do and get done in this project. And he spent 45 minutes telling me how great the company was. Finally, and this is like 1992. And so I said to him, I go, "Listen, I got to ask, if your company's so awesome, why the hell are you going to pay me $1,000 a day to come in and help do and train your people?" And he just looked and he goes, "Well, people around here don't talk to me that way." I said, "Oh, that's unfortunate. So you must have like a good news to the top kind of company where everyone gives all good news to the top and everything's going wrong and you have no idea what's going on." And then he just lost it, like screaming, yelling, foaming at the mouth. I'm like, "So you struggle with emotional self-regulation too? Does this show up at home with your wife?" Oh man, the guy really went off. I mean, just like going nuts. "I didn't realize you weren't supposed to tell the truth to people." All right. And when he finally gets all done and gets calmed down, I just look, I said, "So where do you want to go from here?" Because "I think we might need to look at some stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." So that day, I walked out of the office and I'm like, I like this stuff. And I realized I think I'm better at helping good people become better than sick people become healthy. And that was the first pivot when I said, I think this is something I want to do. But doing it was a whole nother thing. So I do some training for a company, and I don't know if you know Tony Robbins, but he had a franchise system at the time. So I spent a year helping the franchise owner in Salt Lake City build his business, and I'm getting this education on how to coach, how to train. We did so well, I got invited to spend a week with Tony Robbins at his house and be instructed by him on how do you present in a room, how do you coach. It was like an amazing experience. Then they closed the franchises and I got offered a therapy job down in Phoenix. So I moved my family down to Phoenix and 3 months later, lose the contract. So once again, I'm unemployed with 5 kids and I have no money. I had worked my way through college at 4 and 5-star restaurants. And so I had really good background. And there's a 5-star resort down there called the Wigwam. So I literally get a job working as a waiter, like a banquet captain, right? And I work all 3 shifts just to find enough money to put things together and get through. But I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that this idea of being an executive coach, of working in leadership development was what I wanted to do. Well, I worked all the banquets. So when IBM or Pfizer came in and had their big sales meetings or their annual conferences at the big 5-star resort, I'm the dude serving the food. So on the breaks, when everybody else would go smoke pot and do all their other stuff, I would just stand in the back of the room and listen. And I would take notes. And when everybody left, if they had a manual or a handout, I wouldn't throw them away. I'd save them and I'd go home and study them. So one week in early December, the Chevrolet Focus Academy, so Saturn Consulting Services, ran a program for Chevrolet, and they'd bring dealers in from all across the country, like top managers, and they'd do this week-long training on building culture in a dealership. And so I'm working every shift. People, it's the holidays, right? So people are calling out sick, and I'll work every after shift. So I'm working double or triple shifts every day all week. So I'm in every meeting these guys are in. I'm serving them breakfast, I'm serving them lunch, I'm serving them dinner. And finally on the Thursday, it's like right before lunch, and the head of the group pulls me over and says, I need to talk to your boss. I'm like, did I do something wrong? And he's like, no. I said, I need to talk to your boss. I said, yeah, but can I help you? He goes, just get me your boss. Okay. Pull my boss over. No, who is this guy? Well, that's Chris. He's one of our top waiters. So he works here. Yeah, he's a waiter. How long has he been here? Well, like 4 months. And he works for you. Yeah. And he looked at me and said, you're really a waiter? I'm like, yeah. And he looked at my boss and he said, I thought he was a corporate spy. And I just start cracking up. And he said, you, come over here. He sat me down and he looked at my boss and said, can I have him for 15 minutes? And he said, yeah, he's on break. And so he said, do you want a beer? I said, no, I'm working. What do you got? And he said, something's not right. Nobody sits and listens to every session. Nobody collects all the papers like you're doing. No, what's going on? What's your story? Something's not right here. And I said, well, used to be a therapist, closed my thing, worked for Tony Robbins. They closed it up, came down here. They lost that, going through a series of unfortunate events. And I know this is what I want to do, but got to feed my family. And so we start talking about my experience, what I've done, what's happening, how I use that, what I want to do to be a coach. And he said, Chris, you're exactly the kind of person we're looking for. How would you like to come work with Saturn? I'm like, yeah, this is great. But I'm like, he's being nice. It's Christmas. And Benny and Smith, the Crayola guys, were there. And they said, everybody says that. You're fun, Chris. I love you. Yeah, well, give us a resume. We'll see what we can do. Nobody does anything. He said, do you have any materials you've written? Yeah, I've written training manuals. Do you have any videos of you training? Yeah, I've got a couple of them here. This is VHS days, okay? Actually, I had VHSs. And I give them to him, and he says, we'll be in touch. So we go through Christmas, and on the 3rd of January, I get a call from Spring Hill, Tennessee, where Saturn's located. Hey, Chris, we'd like to have you come out for an interview. So I fly back. I interview from 9 until 11:30. They send me to lunch, came back, and at 1 o'clock offered me the job. And I was so excited, but when I get home, I have no money. I have no credit card. I have no credit. And I can't pay for the hotels and the food while I'm training. So I take my car to a buy here, pay here lot. I sell it for $1,500. I get one of those Visa cards that you put the $1,500 on. And that's how I pay for my things. And the first 3 weeks of training were 3 weeks in a row, and they didn't pay expenses till the following month. So the last week I was doing training, I wouldn't eat because I couldn't afford, I didn't have any more room to eat. So I literally ate the lunch that they provided, ate breakfast, and every night I told my training partner I wasn't feeling good and I had to go to bed because I literally couldn't afford dinner until I got reimbursed. But that began a 3-year run for me, where I got to work in Europe, in Canada, all over the United States, and really fall in love with coaching, leadership, development, and culture. And that was so awesome to me that when I finished that, I was recruited by General Motors to help run a whole new project coaching that they had. And I went back to school, got a second master's degree in organizational leadership, and have done this for the rest of my life. Now I actually teach at a university in Paris. This is like my 8th or 9th year that it's a master's program in executive coaching. And I go to Paris every year to teach what I actually do for a living, which is amazingly fun. So that was a trough.
Yeah, that's a hell of a couple of troughs, right? And but that's why so many people don't get like to that excellent level or that next level, right?
Yeah.
Because many times in my life, I try something and I hit that trough, and you get to that point where you're like, dude, I can't do anymore. There's nothing else I can do. But it's that little razor's edge, man. All you have to do is get to that freaking side, and you might be this close.
Yes.
But so many of us quit, and or like see the next little shiny thing. Oh, that's going to be freaking easier. So then we run over that direction.
Yes.
And this is I'm kind of in that trough right now. I did it a little later in life. I'm like Colonel Sanders, I always say. You know,
Good on you.
I think he was 70 when he had his big success, but I love like those are the stories that just inspire you, man. And you know, you went out there with 5 kids. You like a lot of people would say fail at those certain things, but all
I
those
failed.
were just temporary holes to fall in to teach you how to get out of them to be a better leader. And then you know, fell into a job and a lot of people say, oh, he was lucky. He was
I
not
was.
freaking, well, it was lucky in a way, but you freaking put yourself there, right? You were
Hmm.
there doing shit that nobody else would do.
Yes. Yeah. I think luck or fortune comes to people in the midst of effort and adversity. All right. When you get adversity and you put in effort, that seems to be the breeding ground of luck.
That's a that's another great way of putting it because you know everybody always I like to use Alex Hermosi as one of the guys that because I listen to him a
Yes.
lot. And that guy
Uh-huh.
struggled for many a years trying to get stuff. And then all of a sudden he's a millionaire. And you know, he's the luckiest guy in the world, right? That's a lot of freaking work that he did. And same with Tony Robbins. I mean, dude, his
Yeah.
story is absolutely crazy what that guy's
Yeah.
been through. You also do the heroic with
Yes. Yeah. With
Brian
Brian
Johnson
Johnson.
also.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we were talking earlier off camera that tomorrow I have a big proposal that I have to get out and get done, and that what it is, it's part of the heroic education. So it's a year-long curriculum that I'm going to do in a high school in Illinois. Till we sign the contract, I shouldn't say the name. High school in Illinois, where we're going to work with the freshman and the junior on psychological resilience, where we are going to literally teach them the heroic framework around positive psychology and stoic wisdom combined to build resilience, psychological resilience, self-efficacy, habit, and focus so that they can deal with distraction, loneliness, depression, and anxiety. And it's really cool, simple skills and tools that they can use. We teach them one a week every week. There's 4 8-week rounds that we go through. Each one has its own daily little follow-up, as well as our one day every other month where we're live in person to do it. And then I put together 142 TikTok videos so that they're going to get 3 TikTok videos a day with a 30-second message on how to use what we've been talking about. And then we're going to measure on the Diener flourishing scale, which is how well you're flourishing psychologically. So we're going to measure it at the beginning, again in February, and then when they graduate. And then we're also going to track grade point average. And so we're going to identify 200 students to be in the program, 200 people to be in a control group. And then I have a really brilliant statistician from Michigan State University who's going to oversee the study and run all the metrics for it, so we can actually show, is there a statistically significant difference between people who spend time in understanding the heroic philosophy and educational and psychological outcomes. And I'm so excited. That's tomorrow. I have to have that done. So a little stressed to get it done, but it's the project I'm most excited about right now, because if I can do this, and we're going to start in September and go till next May, if I can prove that this works and I can demonstrate this, I can think it can be game changing for taking the most vulnerable and mentally suffering generation that's ever existed and equip them with the exact tools they need to survive in an environment that none of us have ever faced.
Dude, that's like life-changing legacy work there. I mean, that's one of those things because our educational system has failed a lot of freaking people. Um, my opinion. I mean, there is a use for some of the educational system, but I mean, the stuff that they teach people doesn't correlate to being a good person, doesn't most of the time doesn't even correlate to being a a good worker or anything, right?
Right.
And being able to build those, and I think we've missed it for generations. I think the generation right behind us or right in front of us, those old guys knew how to work. They were resilient bastards, but they had no emotional structure, right? So we've always missed something. And then, like, because I've taken Brian Johnson, I've done it for the last year and a half also. I've listened to all his stuff.
Yeah.
It's helped so much. And building good routines, learning how to be resilient, learning how to be accountable for everything in your life because nothing's in your life that you didn't allow there, right?
No, it's that luck thing we are talking about. If you will lean into the adversity that's in front of you and not run from it, and you will put in significant effort, luck will always show up. It's when you avoid the effort or you run away from the adversity, luck has no opportunity to show up in your life.
And I think that's kind of what I want to say. It has to be in the high 80% of our world right now that we constantly are running from any struggle. We want instant gratification. And and anytime something gets hard, it's just easier to turn around and, like they say, tuck your tail and walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. Think of it as like a little eight, like a loop, an eight that you loop back and forth in. And on this side of the loop, you have an anxiety. On this side, you have distraction. So the vast majority of people just cycle. They have anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. They get done with that. I got to go get distracted. I got to go back to work. And then I get anxiety again. And then I go back to, and they just loop back and forth. And when you get into these crazy eight kind of cycles, you can exit upward, right, into increased focus, increase like healthy way, and you can exit downward, like into depression, addiction, all those kinds of things. But most people are just looping back and forth, right, between anger and depression, because anger, you feel powerful, and then you realize, this is so terrible, and then you're depressed, and you just turn inward. And they're like, I cannot want to feel powerless anymore, so I'm gonna get pissed off and be angry again. And so angry, depression, angry, depression, angry, depression, or anxiety, right, distraction, anxiety, distraction, and people just get in these loops that they repeat for weeks and weeks and months and years and years. And when it gets too bad, some people exit down into addiction and other people exit out into growth.
I was one of those guys. I was stuck a long, long time in that figure eight because I always blame stuff, like on my upbringing, how I was blah, blah, and blah, 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 like you said
Oh,
earlier,
yeah.
blame.
Yeah.
And finally, man, it took a long, hard time. Like I hit a spot where I just didn't like the guy I looked at in the mirror. Did not like that
Right.
guy. And that's when I went on my reading binge. I read so much stuff, but all I got was smarter and I blamed more, I knew a lot more shit to blame. And then
Yes.
finally I had to learn who I was and know where I was starting from to get to where I'm at now. And I think that's an important thing for people is actually figuring out where they're at because a lot of people do not know where we're at. We
No.
don't know what triggers us. We don't know why we're in bad. Well, we probably know why we're in bad shape, but our brain isn't allowing us to do it, right?
No. No, it's that again, I'll come back to that. It's a core principle. In order for things to get better, you need to get better. And one of the places you got to get better at is owning where you're at. Like, no, so many people lack clarity. They tend to make things better than it really is so they can feel good about themselves, or they make it worse than it is because it's like their significance come from being a victim. Let me tell you about my childhood. Let me tell you about how hard it was. Let me tell you about, buy into my story, please, right? But what they don't want to do is just how things really are. The best study of life is how things really are. I love Byron Katie. All right, in her book, she talks about this loving what is, but she has the best quote. She says, "When I argue with reality, I lose, but only 100% of the time." Right? I mean, it's so well said.
That's one of those ones you really just. But how many of us sit here and argue with the shit all the time? Like
Yeah,
it's just a constant argument. That didn't. I didn't. I wasn't no. And then all of a sudden you're like, and then when you sit back and look at it like a week later, you're like, man, what the heck was that all about?
exactly. Yes.
So awesome, Chris. You wrote two books, correct?
Yes. Hmm.
And one of them, I think I can see them both there, is
Yep.
Unstoppable You. And
Yep.
then what's the Unstoppable
Unstoppable
Culture?
culture. Yeah. But yeah, those were two different things. So the unstoppable culture was really the work I've done for the past 20 years to put it into a book form so that people that'll never coach could use it. Unstoppable You is a passion project. It's how I ended up in the high school. So my children are in their late 20s and early 30s. Like they go from 37 to 29. And and this was a few years ago, I was talking to them after it was during the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit, I work with car dealers and they all got shut down. And car salespeople had no idea, am I going to have a job? What's going to happen? One of my dealerships was losing a little over $1 million a month while they were shut down. And so, like, this was intense. Like, they didn't know if they were going to lose a six-generation family business. I mean, this is, if you remember in those initial weeks, it was scary as all get out. And I had no idea what to do, but I knew I needed to serve and help my clients. So every day I would get up and I would do a 10 to 15-minute YouTube video on psychological resilience, on how to be mentally tough, on how to hang in there, and on all different topics of how to do that. And I would send it out to all the salespeople, sales managers, and my clients who weren't working. And it really helped them get through that. Well, since your family is always the last person to discover your brilliance, it was years later when I was sitting down with one of my daughters and she was like, Dad, I watched some of your videos, they were really good. 2.5 years later. And she goes, this is exactly what's going on with all of my friends. All of my friends have anxiety, they have depression, like, and she's been married 10 years now. That her friends that got married at 22, 23, 25, and now they're 32, 33, 35, and they're divorced. And she just said, Dad, they need what you have. And so I'm like, you're right. And so Unstoppable You was literally a conversation with my daughters that they shared with their friends on how to be resilient. And it's called 16 and a half Tools for Psychological Resilience, right? And every chapter, there's 16 and a half chapters, right? Every chapter is a story about resilience and how specifically you can apply it. So the whole format is story, teach you a principle, give you a tool to use. So every chapter is like a self-contained thing. When I finished that, that got passed along to several other people. I became an accidental bestseller, all right? And it got passed along to other people. And someone that I work with, again, one of my clients said, Chris, my cousin is the principal of the high school, and they could really use this. And I'm like, well, tell me more. And so we started talking about that. And I had just come back from Athens, where I'd spent a week with Brian Johnson talking about heroic and what to do and how we could really change the world. Like that was the purpose of that conference. And I said, I think I can do this by helping high school kids. Like that's this population that I think I could serve. And so I shared this book with the principal, and then I said, here's what I'm thinking. And she's like, this is exactly what we need. So she's talked to the school board. We're in the final step. And I literally tomorrow, I'm going to send the final proposal. And, I'm hoping by next week or the week after, we will be set up for the 25-26 academic school year.
So you do have a busy night ahead of you.
I do. I do. I have a lot going on in the next little while.
And you still took time to chat with me. I appreciate it.
Always. This is good
One
stuff.
last little thing, and then we'll wrap it up with I always ask my guests to give their three biggest like keys or hints to help the next guy out. And so I give you a little forewarning there. But
Uh-huh.
I want to ask you real quick about AI because you have helped me so much and just like teaching me a little bit how to prompt stuff and how to do that. Would you mind just kind of quick hit that for somebody?
Sure. So let's start with mindset and then execution. Mindset, somehow AI is cheating, or it's not right, or I want to be tough and do it all on my own. And I would just say you're not milking your own cows, you're not growing your own beef, and you're not growing your own food. When you free yourself up from manual labor, you can do bigger, more elevated things. And that's what AI does. It helps you write better. It helps you automate tasks. It helps you take things off of your plate so you can spend your time really helping other people. The easiest way I can explain why I'd encourage you to dive into AI is this. Someone like Oprah Winfrey has enough influence and enough money, she can put anybody in the room she needs to talk to. She needs to work on finances, put someone in the room. She needs to work on music. She can put it between who she knows and what she has for money. She can put anybody in the room. You and I can't. So I have 6 grandkids that come over every Sunday for dinner. And they all came over one Sunday, and I had them each tell me 5 things they love, like unicorns and, soccer and trucks and dinosaurs. And then I went into AI and I said, I want you to be a world-class songwriter and create a song for my 7-year-old granddaughter, Maggie, on these 5 things she loves. And then I took that and I plugged it into Sono and I had it create a pop song in a Taylor Swift style. And in 5 minutes, I had a customized song for my granddaughter Maggie, about the 5 things that she loves the most, using her name in the song 5 or 6 times. You can't imagine the joy she had. Now, I could do that because of AI. Now, Oprah could get a sound engineer, Oprah could get a musician, Oprah could get a lyricist, and put all those people in the room and do that on Sunday afternoon too. But so can I. And I don't have to be Oprah, and I don't have to have her money, and I don't have to have her influence. And so that afternoon, we wrote a song for all 6 of my grandkids, and they spent 3 hours running around listening and go. What AI allows you to do is go from thought to action with no procrastination. It literally gives you the ability to take what you think and turn it into real stuff that fast. And of all the skills you could learn, I think it's the most important skill to learn. And all I'd ask you, if you're old enough that you can remember this, I guarantee you in 1997, you thought, I should probably get a website. But no, it's kind of complicated. I'm not going to do it. And by 2005, you had to get one because you're getting your butt kicked. And then in 2010, they're like, hey, you got to do this social media. And I don't care about that MySpace, face crap, Insta, whatever. Fuck, screw it. I don't want to do that. Right? And then in 2015, you were getting your pants beat off of you and had to learn how to do it. Okay, if you've been through website and the internet and you've been through social media, you know this game. And you're going to get left behind if you don't find a way to embrace it and use it. And there's so many. AI can let you put anybody in the world in the room with you to give you all the advice that you want anytime you want. It is the coolest thing ever. It equalizes the field for people that don't have influence and money to have access to the best possible information instantly.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Thanks.
That's why I had to ask you, because I would just say, use AI, dumbass. And you put it much more.
Which works.
It works. See, that's the difference between our coaching, I think, because I'm just straight blunt about it. Like, I'm almost just like, hey, pull your head out of your ass and we're going to fix this. Where you have a very elegant way of putting stuff. So
thank you.
I got to hang around with you a little more, I think. But
you got it.
Yeah. So give me, you got those 3 things that you could, your 3 biggest keys. Obviously, probably AI is probably one of them now. But the 3 biggest things that can help somebody out.
I'll give you 3. Let me do 3 things we haven't talked about that all would be super valuable. Number 1 is you must read. Leaders are readers. All right. If you wish to lead yourself or lead other people, you have got to bring the minds of other people into your life. You've got to read. And it's not like in school where you have to study and take a test. And most people have PTSD from school, and that's why they don't read, because they think they got to have a test. I think of it as food. I am sure you had lunch 3 Thursdays ago. I'm also sure you have no idea what you ate. You consumed the food, you got the nourishment and the energy, and you used it in output. But you're not constantly worrying what you ate. Same thing with reading. It's not that you're going to memorize it and quote it and use it for the rest of your life. You're consuming that information for that day. It's going to feed your mind. It's going to feed your soul. It's going to feed your heart for that day. and it's enough for the day. And then the next day you got to do it again. And if you keep doing that every day, what you start to do is build a set of connections in your mind that allows you to be more intuitive, more creative, and solve better problems. Which leads me to number two. As a leader, as a manager, you do not get paid to identify problems. Anybody can identify problems. You get paid to solve them. And what you want to do is make a commitment in your life for yourself and for those you love, at home or at work, to move from spending 95% of your time identifying the problems and 5% solving them. Spend 5% identifying the problem. Once you've identified it, all the rest of your time needs to be solving it. But most people spend most of their time identifying problems and not solving their problems. And so they really get in trouble, they really get lost, and it really creates a lot of challenges for them. And then the third thing I would say is, we in the distraction digital economy, one of the casualties of that is presence with people we love. So I coach a lot of very powerful, wealthy, strong people. And I was coaching one of my clients. He owns a car dealership and brilliant guy. But this is our first coaching session. And he's not sure. I was referred to him and I'm not cheap. And so it's kind of a big deal for him. And then he goes, first half hour, we go through all the work stuff. He says, I need a little help at home. And, I know I'm getting caught up in a lot of work stuff and I've got 3 kids and a wife and I can just feel things aren't as connected as they used to be. And, I think I need some help and maybe I need to go get a marriage therapist. And I had him start talking to me. I said, okay, I want you to do one thing. And he was okay. And then when you go home, and I've shared this with thousands of people around the world, all I want is for you to own the first 15 seconds with your spouse. When you walk in the door, I want you to walk directly to her, whatever room she's in, wherever she's at. And you can't peck her on the cheek or give her a kiss or said, hi, I love you. I want you to go and grab her shoulders if you have to. And you look right in her eyes and you hold that for 3, 4, 5 seconds and tell her, I love you. I said, that's it. And he texted me a week later and said, I don't know how you did this, but I just had the best week of my life I have ever had. You are a miracle worker. This is unbelievable. We don't, with the people we care about most, prioritize absolute full presence, even for mere seconds. Because if you do, it will change everything.
That is such a true thing. I went to I did a virtual Tony Robbins event not too long ago where they had a similar situation. And I've been working on that. I still got to get that better about that full contact. But
Yep.
just from a grumpy ass old dude or whatever, I'm gonna say yes, that crowd, it actually super does work, man.
Yep.
Chris, I appreciate it so much. It was fabulous having you on. Uh, yeah, I know whoever listens to this is gonna get some good stuff out of it. And again, I appreciate you coming on, man.
My pleasure. You have a great day.